Hey, Geekscapists! Welcome to a brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm Jonathan London, your host. If this is your first Geekscape, strap yourselves in for some pop culture talk, especially this episode. This is the Geekscape, the Acolyte special. Geekscapists, run yourself back through your brain and ask yourself if you remember a Star Wars series or anything that was as controversial as the Acolyte is. I think currently it has a 27%. That's a little excessive, don't you think, fans? A 27% on the Acolyte. Maybe you don't think that's excessive, but either way, we're going to be discussing it, season 1, in full with my good friend Ian Kerner. That's what we do. We connect. We talk about the latest release. And we're going to do it again pretty soon for a little bit of Deadpool Wolverine. Unless I become a dad between now and Deadpool Wolverine, you guys will get a few releases. I hope you guys enjoyed the Jim Krueger conversation. That was awesome. If you're a comic book fan, go back one episode in the feed and listen to me talk to Jim Krueger. That was amazing. And then right before that, I had Amy Sang, who's one of the actresses in The Acolyte. She's on Geekscape. She was awesome talking about shooting her scenes in The Acolyte. She was one of the are they Acolyte witches? What are they? A lot to discuss. That was a great episode. There's lots to talk about on this episode because I'm still wrapping my head around The Acolyte. Did I enjoy it? Well, who knows? We're going to talk about that. What else? Comic-Con is next week, so I am absolutely fried and dropping words. They're just disappearing from my head. So I'm shorting out like that lady who becomes a robot in Superman 3. I'm just like, brain's not working. This is daddy brain. It's coming. It's also pre-Comic-Con brain, so things are getting a little crunchy for me. We are going to have Geekscape 700. I'm going to invite Ian. He's on the show here in a bit, to Geekscape 700. I think it's going to be this Sunday, live, right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Yeah, we're going to do one last episode, the big Geekscape 700, before we head down to San Diego and run the booth there for you folks. The booth number, for those of you attending San Diego, it's a brand new location. We're going to be over at the Indie Press area with our good friends. Booth 1632. It's a different location than it's been for the last 10, 12 years. But we're close to Troma, Mega 64, our friends in Fanbase Press. We're going to be announcing some fun stuff coming to Geekscape. We're also part of this Indie Creators Scavenger Hunt. That's going to be cool. So if you come to our booth, we're going to have like a checklist. And other booths will have it as well if they're involved. And you go to other indie creators' booths that are on the scavenger hunt, and you get freebies. All the creators have freebies for you. And you get a freebie from us. You get a freebie from all the other booths that are involved. And once you check off all the scavenger hunt booths, you visited all the indie creators involved, you get like a ticket to a raffle for some big ticket items. We're going to be giving away a lot of cool stuff at the Geekscape booth. I am not taking t-shirts down there to sell because I'm not going to be there. I'm going to come down for preview night, set up the booth, do preview night, and then I'm going to come right back to LA and be on Baby Watch 2024. Yeah, we're days away from parenthood here in the London household. Will we have a Deadpool Wolverine episode? That weekend? I'm seeing it Thursday. Unless I have a baby between now and then, I'm seeing it Thursday. So that's really up to my good friend Ian Kerner, who would have to pry himself out of Hall H to do a Deadpool Wolverine special. Otherwise, it might be Monday before we are talking the Deadpool Wolverine, but I can't wait to see it. I'm super stoked for it. I'm seeing all the previews. I don't care if it's a brand new shot of Deadpool eating a Taco Bell chimichanga. That's new for me. I'm going to watch that. So I'm not afraid of spoilers. I want all of the Deadpool Wolverine stuff. I'm super excited. As I was for the Acolyte. And we're going to talk about it. This is something I threw myself into once the episode's released. So we're going to talk about it. I think that's all I have to cover. YouTube, Twitch, you guys are good. We're no longer streaming on X. They want a premium account for us to stream to them. Not giving that guy my money in any way, shape, or form. So goodbye. And let's just start Geekscape, and we'll be back here with Ian Kerner to talk about the first season of The Acolyte. All right, Geekscapists, let's get right to it. The Acolyte, I think, was an 8-episode series on Disney Plus that extended the Star Wars universe 100 years prior to the prequels. So this is a stretch of the Jedi and all that stuff that takes place before we've seen it, I think, in any cinematic form. I mean, none of that extended universe stuff counts from back in the 90s when I was like all about Tales of the Jedi and all that stuff. And some of that stuff, like the animated Tales of the Jedi and things like that, have been on Disney Plus. I just haven't watched it. Ian's going to yell at me, so I can't wait for that. But I'm sure it's great. I like a lot of the animated Star Wars stuff. But The Acolyte was one that promised to extend the universe, right? Some of the writers on the show have talked about not being fans of Star Wars or familiar with Star Wars, and I thought that would be a great chance for something fresh. And for the most part, I found some of it to be fresh. I like the martial arts. I like the extension of aliens and characters and stuff like that. And it had a lot of promise to expand the universe for all of us fans. I wanted new stuff after the Skywalker saga concluded. I was like, let's get a wider universe. Let's get some cool stuff in here. Let's see what this galaxy has to offer. Or 2 galaxies. If you watch Ahsoka, there's another galaxy right next door that they visit with some turtle people in it that I'm a big fan. And we got it. We got some extension of the Star Wars universe, for better or worse. So some of the fans. So Ian, let's bring you in and let's discuss. Fans had been asking, once the Skywalker series saga had concluded with the sequel trilogy, maybe for a little expansive Star Wars. I know I was excited about new ideas in the Star Wars universe and seeing more corners of this galaxy. Right. We got that. Yeah. We did get that. But fans weren't necessarily all happy, were they?
Well, an interesting entryway into this conversation is, are they ever?
I think that's a good point, too. Because there's some bullying going on. Yeah.
But this wasn't what I expected. When I was going to finally get, the Old Republic. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I was very surprised to find out this was set when it was. And we're going to discuss this, debate the pros and cons of it. Because at the end of the day, it's not what you said you wanted. And what I mean by that is it's too close. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about you, but when I saw this 100 years before, and it's, they're straight up on Coruscant, right in the Jedi Temple, and I spent 99.9% of the series going, where the fuck is Yoda?
There's a lot going down. The Jedi are at the center of it, and Yoda and some of the council that we see in the prequels.
Yoda's around. We know that. Yeah. Obviously, we've gotten to the end. We know he's there. And I'll discuss at the end. I finally went to a place of like, okay, I get why Yoda wasn't in it. I'm going to discuss that in a minute. But my point is that what you've said to me for years that you wanted was, let's not be tied to any of it. And what we got instead was what it is actually. And we've debated the prequels many, many times. And one of the things I know I've always said is one thing I gave George Lucas a lot of credit for in the prequels is it's actually very smart. The economically, politically, the ideas of how this all happens, that the Republic comes to an end, the Empire gets formed. I think it's very well thought out. on so many different levels. And what we have here is more of that.
Yeah.
You know, what we're seeing, what they've set up here is we actually see the debate about the Jedis have too much power. They're a little too accustomed to doing it their way. Like it's all being set up. And of course, and to call this out for those that didn't know, the Muin that you see on that planet as, what's his name? Camille and Asha leaving, that's Darth Plagueis.
Yes.
Okay. Darth Plagueis is Darth Sidious's master. Not yet, but that's who he will be. So odds are, and I was, here's one of the issues you get, because most of what we know about Darth Plagueis comes from stuff that is maybe or maybe not canon anymore.
And he's like in one shot, Geekscape is. He's in one shot. He looks like ghoulish, yeah.
I know a lot of people, when this started, we kept saying, okay, the Sith Master must be, was it going to be Plagueis or was it going to be Tenebrous? Tenebrous was Darth Plagueis' master. I thought, in dating it back, and it's really unclear, that this should have been the period where Darth Plagueis was an apprentice. But
okay.
What it seems like it probably was shortly after Darth Plagueis killed Darth Tenebrous. Now, I want to talk about a few things here. The rule of two is a weird thing that's often misunderstood. The rule of two, and really it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's this whole idea that, so long before all this, the Sith all killed each other off, so there should be this rule of two, but they're always sort of, master and apprentice, but the apprentice is always trying to, ultimately take over from the master. But it doesn't really mean that there aren't more. Like the best example is, you had Maul, but it's not that Dooku just showed up. I know you didn't watch Tales of the Jedi, but the idea
but Dooku should be existing concurrently with Maul and Sidious.
Yeah, basically, but that doesn't mean that Dooku and Maul necessarily work together. But Sidious has other plans going on.
Sure.
He has other things going on. There's someone else ready to step in. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. And look, it gets confusing.
In an episode, when Sidious is talking about Darth Plagueis, and we hear that in the prequels, Sidious is admitting to having killed Plagueis.
But here's what's interesting.
Because he says he taught his apprentice everything he knows, and then he couldn't save himself because he says that to Anakin because Plagueis can create life.
Yes.
Using the dark powers.
But here's what's not clear in that scene that is supposedly established canon, though if you only watch the movies, you don't see this, and that's something else I want to talk about. Because I do think it's a problem that generally Disney has. Okay?
Geekscape, strap yourselves in. This is why we have you in
Before I go off on that tangent, let me just say, so here's the thing. Is if you pay attention to things other than just what you saw on the screen in the movies, you know that Plagueis is around still in episode 1. We don't see him, but yeah. So the story of basically Sidious poisoned Plagueis.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Hamlet, pouring poison in his ear kind of thing, whatever, but he poisoned him, but it just happened like shortly before episode 2.
And that's when this dialogue's happening, in
episode 2.
In episode 2.
Yeah. So he's he's only recently dead. Now Muin live a lot longer. So what I was saying
Mulin's the race that Plagueis is a Mulin.
Plagueis is, yes, a Muin. Okay. Who are very they're big and very wealthy, and again, it's up to them what they're going to keep canon. But the idea is that Plagueis had this. Identity the same way Darth Sidious is Palpatine. Plagueis is this He-Go the mask, and a lot of what basically it's not all Sidious's plan. What Sidious did, Sidious inherited the plan. So Plagueis, the Sith have been working towards working with the corruption in the Senate, in the Republic. What the Jedi have been doing. This has been going on for hundreds of years, arguably. And by the way, that's the thing with that senator. I don't think that's a one-off. In fact, I expect that senator is probably a pawn of Plagueis or something like that.
Well, and he may not even be aware of it. And this is the senator who's talking to Vernestra about I actually thought that was a nice piece of dialogue. And Geekscape is like, people who are critical of this, or maybe they were like, oh, it's too slow, this and that. I think that pacing is an issue in this series. That being said, there's some cool stuff in here, and I thought that dialogue with Vanestra talking about how you looking up to your heroes and how they've become so dependent on the Jedi that it's almost a problem, and he may not be aware that he's playing into Plagueis' plan.
Well, here's the thing, and that scene coming late in the season was great because I think it kind of brings what a lot of us were feeling watching the whole season is these Jedi are more than a little flawed. Yeah. I mean, the joke is, as we were watching, I know, you and I, we actually commented a bit as we were watching the early episodes, like, when we finally got to what I think was episode 5, where Khmer, like, wipes them out, and I'm literally going into the episode going, like, let's just kill all these annoying Jedi. Like, how does that happen?
They were kind of annoying. They were annoying from the beginning.
Right? Yeah, and I'm going in and going, like, I want them all the time.
Yeah.
Like you don't like them.
Well, I mean, I didn't want Kilnaka to die. Well, I like the idea of a Wookiee. Wookiee Jedi. I like the idea of it, but
and what's it? What's her face? Jackie.
I love Jackie because I love the actress who played Jackie because she was in and she was also Laura in Logan. Yeah, she was. It was so great.
Yeah. So
I think the argument you're making to me, Ian, is yes, this is different than the stories we've gotten, but it's still so tied to what turns into the Skywalker saga that it's not removed enough. In a Tales of the Jedi, that's 1,000, 2,000 years prior. I loved those old comics and stuff. Those comics from the 90s were amazing stories.
And like lately, we have like old Republic comics again. They're long before. I mean, even those, I think they're only a few hundred years before, or maybe it's a little longer. I have to check that. But the point is that it's a while before, and this is like it's still tied in. Now, is that a mistake? Honestly, I actually think it's kind of cool, and I get that they took a while until that very end to not give you those characters. But it's close enough, and now we see how this all informs stuff, and maybe that is a good idea, Because here's the problem: as much as you say you want more of it, all that, the bottom line is it's viewership. When you have the thing that doesn't seem like this, we go in circles on this. Like people say they want a new story, but if it isn't IP, they don't go.
Right. And
it's a problem, and I think on some level Disney knows it. There's debate right now about is there going to be a season 2. What the ratings were and all that stuff, because there weren't any recognizable characters. And I would argue that they set up something that's a lot more interesting in season 2,
And I think that the Halo series that just got canceled after 2 seasons, it could be a good example of it, because I hear that season 2 of Halo is a lot closer to what fans wanted with the pew and that stuff. Season 1 was such an expansion on... I mean, Halo, we can all admit, is a fairly simple idea, but it does have a pretty expansive mythology when you work in the books, and even the games have a lot of mythology in them. But at its core, it's a pretty simple gameplay, and it's a lot of fun, and we want the action. But a lot of that stuff in Season 1 was taking second seat to establishment of this wide, expansive world. And we also saw Master Chief with his helmet off for a long time, which that feels almost like it should be a reward, like they did in The Mandalorian, to have Master Chief remove the helmet. Is that
not like Judge Dredd with his helmet off?
Yeah, that's how I felt. And then you get season 2, but it felt like maybe too little too late with the fans, and now we don't have a season 3. With this one, I agree with you. The stuff that they set up for season 2 sounds really interesting. The pacing and some of the stuff early on, I don't like a lot of Jedi in my Star Wars. I'll tell you why. And Greg C. may agree. He's on YouTube, and he says the Jedi were actually utterly inept. And they were. They allowed a lot of silly stuff to happen. And I think that you have this story, and maybe there's too many characters in it. Telling it out of sequence and with flashbacks, I think damaged it a bit. And then the fact that you're basically doing... you're sort of doing a version of Infernal Affairs in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And that can be confusing if you don't set it up right, especially when you're working with twins, right? And not that the costume changes this and that was too hard to follow, but do we want an Infernal Affairs in the Star Wars universe? It's a good idea, but it's hard to pull off.
Could we talk about the twin thing?
Sure, we can talk about whatever you want, brother. You're the expert here.
Well, I mean, I think I'm knowledgeable. I don't know
You
if
have more
I'm
context than I do because it's
maybe.
after the prequels. I pretty much told myself I'm going to just be a movie, TV, Star Wars
So,
guy.
and I'm a little better than you. I'm not as complete as I can be. Book wise, I used to read them. I stopped at a certain point. And I've been bad about the video games for a while now.
Sure.
So I was actually talking to a friend of mine right before this who, like called out, like a lot of the Virgin stuff has been video games, where, I mean, yes, in Empire, the Cave is of Virgins. They call out the Virgins in Rise of Skywalker, What's a Virgins? Virgins is, a big power source, and I think in Phantom Menace, they said that Anakin is a Virgins. He is a Virgins.
He's the power
as
source.
opposed to in this, there's a Virgins there on Brandok, and they use the power of the Virgins to create them, which of course sounds very similar to what seemingly
to make the twins. Yes. But also, like, is Khmer, the planet Khmer, is that a Virgin?
No, Khmer is not a planet. Khmer is the guy.
But I'm sorry, Baldemic. Because that's where Darth Tenebris and Darth Plagueis are.
That's right.
Is that a Virgin?
We think that no one said that necessarily.
But these two fools are capable of making life because of their dark force powers.
Right, but so the idea is they maybe find a Virgin to manipulate it to, look, that's the other thing in Star Wars that is much more in more extended universe stuff. You have things about artifacts, objects of power, Sith holocrons, things like that. There are things you can take power from. The current run of comics have done that a lot. And those are all canon, where, there's some kind of thing that has, it's an artifact, it's a thing, it's a device that, that has power, has an entity, has something in it, and you can use that for power. In Ahsoka, we know that, they're going back to, the father, the son, the daughter, that stuff.
Yeah, and Ray Stevenson's character.
These beings. Yeah, that there are beings and things in the mysticism that are out there. So, you have a lot of that. What I got a little confused by, they kept saying this, they're not twins, so they're seemingly the same person, but are they yin and yang? Did you feel that one was dark, one was light, and then they felt they had to switch places?
No, I felt like, there's a scene under the tree with the kids, and one of them looks like they're flirting with the idea of harming this creature, this butterfly-looking fairy thing, and then the other one. So I think one of them is exploring a dark side of them, but it's obviously flips when the stranger reveals his plan. The stranger's Khmer, correct? And so, like,
yes.
When that starts getting unfolded, and then you see kind of Saul's, I don't want to call it betrayal because it is kind of an aptitude. When that starts to fall apart, and they switch, who's good and who's bad? It's more like who trusted. I'm not talking
about the costume switch. I'm talking about the emotional thing. I know.
And like who trusted in the ideals of the Jedi, and who didn't, and the ideals of the Jedi shift. Right, because at the end, the sister that you call bad goes on to actually join the Jedi in exploring what happened. And meanwhile, the sister that was at one point, quote unquote, good. So I don't think it's a good and bad thing. I think it's like, what do you choose to believe in? And in that way, like, they are the same person. They just decided to believe in different things. But it's like America. We're one nation. We just decided to.
No. What I'm saying is this. Okay, so two people weren't born. The implication was they're not sisters of the same person, right?
I thought that at one point they could have been clones of the mother.
Could have been clones,
right?
Or were they twinned? In terms, I'm a little Farscape reference. Are they the same? Or, as I said, are they? They don't say it this way, but are they sharing the same soul? Are they yin and yang? Are they experiencing things as they're a split being that's so completely connected? That's but also, what I'm saying. So
look at how the mother dies. The mother dies becoming this mist. Are they the same entity, but they have turned into two physical things, but really representing a whole? Because the mother, I mean, those witches start turning into mist.
No, I know that, but the witches don't talk about them as if she's the same. They talk about her as being a daughter. And they're pretty adamant about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't think they're just the mother again. I think that they are... Again,
offspring.
Let me call it out.
They're offspring.
It's the Acolyte.
So they are one being.
That's what I think.
Okay. Greg C. is kicking ass in the comments. He says, did the witches manipulate the thread to create the twins, or did Plagueis do it from the shadows? He was there according to the finale. What if they were created by Plagueis to create a differentiation
he's not
between...
there, he was somewhere else. Well, listen, it's an interesting argument. Because the whole thing is, people have always... Here's another one. Was Anakin created by Plagueis, or no? My understanding is Plagueis tried to do something and create something that was dark, and Anakin was created by the Force in answer to what Plagueis did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's not clear to a lot of people. Okay?
That's cool. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, it's not clear. Definitively, the witches say they did it.
Right.
As far as they're concerned, they did that.
But were they a manipulation of Plagueis?
Does it make sense?
That make sense?
Sure, that's a possibility.
Because they're not the witches of Dathomir. Is that correct?
They're not the witches of Dathomir, but that doesn't mean that they're a different offshoot.
Okay.
So I think it's sort of reductive of them to say that they're being manipulated by Plagueis.
It gets confusing, and at a certain point, I think that for me, and I'm sorry, Geekscapists, if I'm a little too lowbrow for your Star Wars appreciation, but I think at the end of the day, when I look at the Star Wars that's successful and I look at the Star Wars that becomes divisive, I think that the successful Star Wars is always the Star Wars that tells stories in a very simple way. And maybe it's not just pew 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 lightsaber battles, but when it sticks to a smaller cast, when it sticks to a clearer story, when it doesn't need to explore too many themes and answer them, but it just leaves them for the audience, and it doesn't try and crunch too many themes into a narrative. I think if a 6-episode version of the Acolyte would have ripped, I think it would have been a lot of fun. But a lot of this stuff and a lot of the pondering, and Saul takes on a lot of this stuff in it. A lot of the ideas in it, I think, need to be thrown out and solidified so that we just get a clearer story.
Here's coming back to the point we were just making, talking about the idea of being manipulated by Plagueis. The reason I think that's reductive is this is something that they did in this show that I thought was a really smart idea. And I'm going to point out a character that I know you like, Maz Kanata.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It makes all the sense in the world that there are people that are attuned to the Force, like a Maz Kanata,
with the Jedi,
who are not a Jedi and they're not a Sith.
Right.
And that's the whole point of these witches, is they're an offshoot. And the Jedi come in with it has to be this way. And they're wrong for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the show makes it very clear by the end there. We see two different points of view. And you know what? At the end of it, it's not really two points of view. The Jedi are wrong. You understand why they got confused in their point of view, but they messed up. These people were not doing anything wrong. They weren't doing anything bad. And making up, we have to save the children based on our ideals is a bunch of bullshit. Right? Yeah. And Saul knows it at the end. You know, he's telling himself he had to justify it. It was, he saw what was going on, whatever else. I mean, listen, once the fires happened, everyone's dead. Yeah, okay, we got no choice. Let's save them. I get it. Telling the lie to the Jedi Council because they just wouldn't have let him keep her and train her. I get that too. We know that's true. We know that she's right. I'm blanking Carrie Ann Moss's character's name. But when she said that, it's right.
Mm-hmm. That's Indara.
But you see what I'm saying there?
Yes.
So I'm just saying that there's
some of the writing was really good. Some of that writing was really great, and I was like, okay, get it. I mean, when they do the episode, episode 7, when it's just that massive flashback episode where you see what really happened. First off, we get the Wookiee lightsaber battle that Jonathan had been waiting on. It was great.
Yes.
But then you also get questions like, does Kelnaka suddenly getting woken up from force control suddenly kill all the Acolyte
I don't
witches.
know. I have no idea why that happened.
I don't know why it happened.
I have
Also,
no idea.
can we take a pause to talk about the best character in the series who survives the series? And I can't wait to
Basil.
this is Basil. I want to get more season 2 just for Basil.
But
Basil is
let's talk about Basil. Basil
good.
the
I'll do the whole episode on Basil.
Yeah,
He's a Tenon tracker. He's a Tenon tracker.
And we knew there was no way that this was not going to be Jonathan's favorite character, maybe of all time.
The second he showed up, I was like, okay, I'm back in. Back into the Acolyte.
But is Basil kind of a dick?
I don't fucking know what Basil was doing.
I don't know.
Ship.
Do we know?
Why Basil
can they
turned
talk to him?
on
Do they
Soul?
Understand him?
I don't know what Basil's agenda is. It's just like Basil could be a plot device when it needs to be a plot device, but at that point where Basil like stows away and the quote unquote bad twin goes on to the ship, and Saul for some reason does not like. How did Saul get duped like that? I don't understand. He raised the other twin like his daughter, and then when it switches back, a haircut tricks him. Like,
but does it,
bro?
If they're the same person, do they smell the same?
Okay, so
you see where I'm going with
ideally
that?
they act the same, but why did Basil then try and stop the ship from going? I don't understand Basil's. I don't understand the motivations on Basil at all. Is he a dick? No, I think sadly Basil was just a plot device that if you need the ship to be wrecked and pulled out of hyperspace or whatever, Basil's there to do it. If you need something over here, if you need somebody found, Basil would disappear, including the last half of the last episode. Basil just disappears when you need Basil to disappear, and he shows up to wreck something when you need him to wreck something. If you need to find somebody, Basil will find him. If that person needs to just go on their own for a bit, Basil suddenly can't track anymore. Like, sadly, one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time feels like a writing convenience. He feels like he's there to like help move a plot point, and he deserves more than that. I'm looking forward to the Disney Plus show dedicating itself to Basil's character.
Okay.
Where we find out that he has a wonderful singing voice. Whenever he freaks out, goes, ah! Everybody else got killed, but that little rodent dude with no force powers whatsoever managed to live. I'm in, man.
I saw one theory.
Okay.
And this is interesting to me.
That Basil's the Dark Sidious character?
No.
That
Basil actually senses light side versus dark side.
Oh, get off it.
I'm just saying, and that as May went over to the light side and was more reasoned, he suddenly came on her side.
Sure.
I don't fucking know. I don't know.
Those are fans making stuff up. But it goes back to my argument that the simpler these Star Wars stories are, the better.
So what my friend said to me, the frustration, this is someone who's well-versed in the games and all the things, said, but, again, the problem is, and you and I said something similar to what I'm about to say after Ahsoka, is how difficult is this for people that, like, are you making these for people that have seen everything? At least there got to be more exposition. You have to let people know what they're missing so they're in on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
you shouldn't have to watch everything in order to get what the heck's going on in this stuff. And if anything, the across the lot,
or at least tell them. And fine, for those that already knew, we already knew. But there's ways to do that.
But across the campus over there is Pixar. Over at Disney Animation, really, Pixar's up north, but they're able to make a sequel to Inside Out. They're able to make sequels to all their movies. They're able to do all this stuff and extend their universes, and they don't need that. They don't need to every single movie is clear. If you sit down and watch Inside Out 2 without having seen Inside Out 1, you're not going to miss anything but Bing Bong. You're going to get a great movie, and I think that Star Wars being approached in that style, in that story writing, in that writing style, I think that's just I think that would make a better product. Does that make sense? It's becoming very self-referential to the point where when something wavers just a little bit, like two twins being created out of nothing, which was supposed to be exclusive to Anakin, suddenly everybody's ready to burn the freaking place down. And if you just tell a simpler story that doesn't need to reference this or that, maybe that's what it is. Maybe they didn't reference that, and that's why fans were like, no, wait, it already happened over here with Anakin. You can't do that again. They can't have twins again. We already had Luke and Leia twins. Well, they're not, it's like, at a point, we should have all learned from season 1 of The Mandalorian that was so stripped down, so simply told. Most of it's silent. It's silent movies after a while. Like after a while, it was just like super great. Like there's a reason The Mandalorian was stratospherically successful. Like we were all excited for it, but there's something to be said for simpler storytelling that doesn't need to be stuffed with so many ideas. If you want to tell that many ideas, tell more stories, and they're clearly going to do that, right? Like I think I'm okay with a Star Wars movie just being told, and that was the promise of something that took place before all these movies was, and again, like I agree with you, it didn't take place early enough, but the idea of a Tales of the Jedi is it's not going to be tied to anything. It's not going to, it's like being beholden to itself just turns into kind of a weight that it can't possibly carry. Not for all the fans, the fans want it to hit the mark. I think cleansing yourself of all that stuff frees you up to tell a nice, clean story. That's what I was looking for. I feel like I got half of it. I feel like it was kind of confusing. I mean, we would text each other, and the action set pieces and things like that. Even then, you have Jedi landing on that planet Brendok, and suddenly there's like these bugs and like all these like larvae on the trees and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be a great sequence where they have to run for it, and they're being attacked by every insect on this planet. We didn't really get that in that episode. We kind of only got it as like they slice one mosquito. It's a big mosquito, but they slice one mosquito, and it's over.
It's like, hey, they're gonna slice us. We out.
We were looking forward to a battle with Kilnaka in the same way that we got the Carry-On Moss characters battle to start off the series. That was like a kick-ass fight. It had everything that it promised, so some martial arts with some Jedi. I was like, awesome. We're going to see Kilnaka doing that stuff, but he's a Wookiee. He's got crazy strength. This is going to be a lot of fun. And when we finally get to the resolution of Kilnaka's story in that episode, dude's dead off screen. Like, he's already dead. And we don't actually get that promise until episode 7, which was a cool sequence. But seeing him versus the Stranger would have been pretty awesome. We don't actually see the Stranger kill anybody.
Yeah.
Did we see the Stranger kill any of the 4 Jedi they set off to kill?
No, I think, we know he killed them.
But we don't see any of it. Well, first off, his Acolyte did. May did. Yeah. May killed 3 of them. But the Kilnaka fight, like, that would have been a great, if we see him kill a ton.
No, I would like to have seen it, but we know he did it, yeah.
So, I don't know. There's mixed stuff like that ultimately goes back to the argument I had coming out of episode 1 and episode 2 and then episode 3, where I was I have to scale back my Star Wars fandom because, no offense to people who love the prequels, a lot of people are now in their 30s who love the prequels, but if at the end of the day, if Han Solo with an 18-year-old Luke has been from one side of the galaxy to the other and can't be convinced there's an all-powerful force, yet in episode 3 you have Chewbacca with Yoda on his back fighting in Battle of Kashyyyk, like, do they not talk to each other? Han can't be convinced the Force exists, but it's been 20 years since the Jedi were literally on every street corner on Coruscant.
No, they were not. No. First of all,
but you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not exactly the G-men from the 1950s. They're not government spooks. They're fucking everywhere.
The idea is supposed to be that there's so many planets, and Jedi are a very, very rare thing, even at the time, at the height in episode 1. Our perspective is different because we're right there seeing it. But when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon come to Tatooine, it's like, oh, Jedi, like they're this mythic thing. People have heard of it.
They go to Tatooine every month. They're always on Tatooine.
That's our perspective of seeing it, but it's not what people see.
Listen, if a big ass, let's say, like Taylor Swift lands on Tatooine every month, people be talking about it. Especially if you have Yoda on your back. Like, how does Han not know the Force exists when Yoda was on his co-pilot best friend Ozma Life Dead's back?
Because they didn't necessarily talk about it.
Get the fuck out of here!
The Jedi went underground. No, here's the thing. The point is, Han doesn't say he's never heard of the Force. That's not what he says. He doesn't say, I've never heard of Jedi. He says he hasn't seen anything that makes him believe, referencing exactly what it is he's heard of, that this thing exists. Just because he's heard of it and people talk about it all the time, here he is 19 years after the formation of the Empire.
And the furry asshole playing chess in the corner doesn't want to fucking say a thing?
Apparently not. He's a dick.
Come on. Come on.
Again, you have to remember that episode 3 is made probably for fan service, having Chewbacca in that, you know? Like, it's not the original idea.
And the droid shouldn't have been in the prequels either.
Likely agreed. I mean, you know, Lucas, you know, he sees them as a device. You know, and then they just go through all this stuff. It's that joke that they've just lived through everything.
Should have put Basil in it then.
Sure.
Speaking of devices.
And you know, 3PO's mind gets wiped because people understand him. And R2-D2 is always like he's saying all the things and no one believes R2-D2. You know?
That's what I was
3PO certainly does. And I don't know what he's talking about. He's a, you know, it's a general this, he did that, he belongs to so-and-so. I don't know what he's saying, you know? He's saying the shit. R2-D2 knows everything. He's saying it. No one's listening.
I enjoy the martial arts with lightsabers. I enjoy the new aliens. I enjoy some of the storytelling. I enjoy the sequence with the senator. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's some good writing. Really good stuff in this series. But when it becomes like beholden to itself, where it's like, we got to put Chewbacca in there because he's going to end up on a McDonald's cup.
I agree.
Or we got to put the droids like that. Like it implodes under the weight of its own fan service.
So I said something before that I really want to talk about, and it's the Yoda of it. Because through most of it, I was pretty pissed. Where the fuck is Yoda? By the end, I felt the whole point is that
he's hanging out with Chewbacca playing chess.
It's been so much cover up. It's all dirty. I don't know what Vanestra knows or doesn't know when she's first sending Saul, but she certainly by the end knows what's gone on here and realizes, okay, this has just gotten so bad. It's really, really messed up. I got to go to Yoda. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the idea is that they were keeping him out of it. They weren't going to the council, you know. They were just trying to figure out what this mess is, you know.
You got the other guy. You got the guy with the giant tower head.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, that's what it is, you know. I mean, and they're all messed up, right? And I think that's kind of cool because, you know, in episode 1, really in episode 2, and by the time, you know, by episode 3, you know, it's the wars messed the Jedi up.
Yeah.
But the idea that on some levels Palpatine's right. The Jedi have been corrupted by simply, and this is what the idea is, that Jedi were not supposed to be political animals. They shouldn't be, you know, Qui-Gon's right. They shouldn't be involved in all these things that are official for the Republic. It's not, you know, it corrupts them. You know, it brings them down. But, you know, we've heard it as a concept, but we see it here. Even the idea that they're so righteous and right, and it has to be our way. Yeah. You know, oh, there's kids. Well, they must be in danger because someone else is doing this way. They're fine. You know, I mean, who the hell are the Jedi just to show up here? And these people just have to, like, you know, Brendok's not a Republic planet. You know, they should have no power there and no say there.
Yeah, Saul was idealistic to a point, or to a fault. You know, and it's
not his fault. It's not his fault. He's been, because he's indoctrinated. That's the Jedi line, right?
I thought Lee Jung-jae. I thought Manny Jacinto. I thought the actors were all awesome. I thought they were really good. And at times, I think the dialogue, a lot of this stuff was rocking. It was just there was a lot of action sequences which were good, but
what's interesting to me,
it was coming at a pace that I was like, this could be 6 episodes.
Yeah, sure. What's interesting to me is, you know, I go back to this whole thing that they're the same person, they're one, whatever, May's seemingly gone. You know, could whatever Asha is without May, you know, could she have ever been a Jedi? No. Hmm. You know, the point that, she couldn't let it go over anger, but is it anger? Is it more than anger? You know, what is it? I don't know. You know, we'll have to see if there's a second season. I think we have a lot of questions that we don't have answers to because there's no way to have answers to it because they have a story in mind. and they didn't finish telling it.
What do you want to see in that second season? By the way, Greg C says, I could not agree more with all of those points. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
And now he's coming back and he says, I get that, but why are the Jedi so inept? Why are they so disconnected from the Force? The Jedi seemed unable to use the Force until the plot needed them to.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, Saul, Renestra, I mean, they were very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were quite adept.
And the least powerful of them was the weak link who started the whole chain of events with the witches. He was a Padawan. I thought that was
goes on to be super powerful, right? Until his guilt, he lets his Force shield down. But he's literally, in a temple, floating
vow of silence,
with a constant force field up, basically, right? You can't get through it until his guilt lets it through.
Right. So, yeah, I thought some of that stuff was pretty well done. Issues about some of the stuff being told in flashback and not. Again, I've already voiced the pacing stuff. What do you want to see in season 2? Besides Yoda?
Well, obviously Yoda,
Yeah.
Yoda and Plagueis.
Right.
I mean, obviously we're going to see more about, what Asha's path is. I'm sorry. I just thought it was so weird and dumb. Why can't they go with them? I'm going to find you later, so you just stay. We're going to wipe your mind so the Jedi can't get anything out of it, because otherwise, through her mind, they'll find them. I guess the idea is they didn't take a memory away. She knows where that planet is. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that what they meant?
I don't know.
Because if it's her as a lore, well, they have her now. So that seemed a little weird to me.
I'm going to admit something rough. I almost in every episode had to wake up and then go back 20 minutes to rewatch scenes because we've voiced my issues with the pacing. I fell asleep. I fell asleep at almost every episode. I liked it. I finished them, but the pacing took a toll. And so I missed that conversation. I was like, okay, they mind wiped her. I get it. I get plot wise why they need to mind wipe her. Otherwise, it's tough. But when they by that point, if so much stuff had been done in service of a plot, but not like sensical character choices, then I'm like, this is wearing me out. Greg finally admitted to this, though. He says, guys, I hated the series. I've thoroughly enjoyed your views in this discussion. Thanks for putting yourselves out there. But Greg did not. Greg may not be on board for season 2. I'll be on board for season 2 because Basil's still alive, and I'm looking forward to the Basil Yoda scene. I'm excited for that. The Basil Yoda scene that's going to be on my T-shirt at San Diego Comic-Con 2025. But it is not winning over the fans. Are fans asking too much, Ian, of this stuff, or screw it? This is their childhood, so they should be asking too much.
Well, that's a good question. We keep going back to this, right? And I think this is a comment I'm going to go back to with Star Wars. The whole "they raped my childhood" line, what were these movies to begin with? What are our expectations? Are they too high? We want to get the same feelings we had when we saw them when we were 7 years old, whatever, I know a lot of people. I remember arguing this when the prequels came out, and now here we are years later, and that young people felt the same way about the prequels when they came out that we did when the originals came out. And even those same young people now, 25 years later, that's how they feel. Yeah. It hit those beats. So that's a filmmaking, conversation question on some level.
I was never okay with the George Lucas the whole Star Wars that whole thing, because those same fans are the ones who then go to the conventions, and I'm pretty sure this is a very picky subject. This is a sticky subject, but when SA is involved, you then don't go to a convention where people are dressing sexual assault, sexual abuse.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
When SA is involved, you don't then go to a convention where people are cosplaying as people that remind you of the SA. Like, that whole argument is like, dude, no, that was your childhood.
I don't understand. What does that do with sexual abuse?
Because people are saying it raped the childhood, but then they turn around and go to a convention where they're reminded of the rapings. And it's like, no, you don't it didn't. It didn't. That was something you enjoyed as a kid. Now that you're an adult, you ask more of things, and it's not satisfying those things anymore. Let people enjoy the prequels. Let them enjoy the sequels.
It's insensitive to use that particular terminology.
Oh, it's awful.
In reference to being upset. Yeah. But, I mean, I always felt, I guess I never really reacted to that because I always saw that as they're being purposely histrionic in their assessment of how it made them feel.
Oh, it's like, dude, get off it. Enjoy the movies. I mean, here's the thing, Geekscape is, I'm in that 27% that enjoyed the Acolyte on the Rotten Tomatoes, if you want to go with that score. Yeah. I enjoyed it because it delivered some of the things it promised, which was Jedi Fu. I got some Jedi Kung Fu. I got a rodent dude. I'm into that, which really means a lot more aliens. I got some good acting. I got some good writing.
The first flashback was episode 3 or episode 4?
Where you see the lighting of the fire, I think it was episode 3 or 4.
I think it was episode 3, yeah.
And I like this stuff. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It's not.
I thought it was definitely the weakest, but there were things I liked about it, and some of the episodes, I mean, as I've said, when you get to the point at episode 5 where Kamira's killing them all, I was like, I was loving it. I was frustrated with them by then.
I was frustrated with some of the bait and switch on the pacing of episode 4. When you'd have the setup with the insects and you only really fight one insect, or the setup that he's going to take all these Jedi and then all of a sudden it ends on the cliffhanger. You don't get the Kelnaka fight, but you start getting those things satisfied over the course of the series. And if it had been a 6-episode series, I think it would have ripped a little better.
I have a simple question. Is there anyone that didn't want Yord to die?
Yeah, sadly, love the actor, really, really love him. But I mean, Charlie Barnett's the actor on that one, and he did a great job. And
I've seen other stuff. I like him.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I was like, you know what?
He's a bit of a stick in the mud. Yours a bit of a stick in the mud. Nobody wanted Jecki to die. Nobody. I think we're waiting for Vanestra and Mog to die in season 2.
You ain't gonna kill Vanestra. You're not gonna kill Vanestra. Do you know why?
Oh, she's in more stories, isn't she?
No.
Why?
The actress is the wife of Leslie Headland.
Oh, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. Or maybe it will.
It's a James Gunn playbook.
Dude, did you see Furiosa? Did you actually see Furiosa?
Yeah.
I love Furiosa. But the most messed up, they have a female Outlander or a Reaver or whatever they call the people who are working with Chris Hemsworth's character. And the woman who is so messed up with a messed up lip and all this stuff scarring on her face is Chris Hemsworth's wife.
Oh, really?
She's stunning. She's awesome with this and that. But she is kick-ass.
Which character?
The one who she's in Chris Hemsworth's character's like grouping. She fights. She has a scar face and lip.
You need to find me a picture.
Well, in the sequence in Furiosa, she kills all the other ones vying to be part of his band.
Okay.
In a really violent scene, and I loved it. And then I was like, who's the actress? And it was her birthday 2 days ago, and Chris Hemsworth shouted her out on Instagram. I was like, oh, it's his wife. And I say that because the actress who plays Vernestra, the cool move for Rebecca Henderson and Leslie Hyland would be give her a kick-ass death sequence that shows the stakes of everything that's going on in season 2, the stakes of what leads into 100 years later, where the Jedi are when it comes to the prequels and this and that. But don't be afraid to kill off the character in a really badass way. JC Marquez, our own Juan Carlos from back in the day at Geekscape, says anyone who's around from the prequel era, that's all of our old asses, knows how awful the criticism was towards those films. Attack of the Clones, anyone remember how they went after the dialogue in the film? Yeah, I mean, if it's not for you, it's not for you after a while. I remember not enjoying the prequels and just being like, cool, I'm going to scale back my investment in this universe. But still, at 45 years old, I'm wearing my Mexican Star Wars shirt because I still get enjoyment from this stuff. I got enjoyment out of the Acolyte for sure.
No, same here. And again, I've been sitting here and I'm thinking about, what they did right, what they did wrong. Is it for everyone? And this keeps reverberating in my mind. And as I said, I had a conversation with a friend of mine before we started the podcast.
And Ian, better question: is there a right or wrong?
Well, that's
I'm worrying about I'm worrying about the pacing, but like, okay, it wasn't right for me; it was right for somebody else.
What's frustrating is, you know, quote unquote, what do fans want? What are people watching? You know, it's definitely the lowest rated. You know, what does that mean? Because as I said, if it had been exactly what you wanted, which is no ties, the ratings would be lower, unfortunately.
Yeah. It was like the Eternals.
The Yoda and Plagueis, the hint of those two things could actually make a season 2 be very highly watched.
I agree.
Buzz gets out there. I believe that. You know, that if people and then if people knew that it was going to be that, then, you know, people are going to watch it. Mm-hmm. You know, that want that. People are going to be interested in that. If you straight up told me the show was about Darth Plagueis, you know, coming to power, manipulating it, and Yoda in the background, I watch that show, and I think a lot of people would.
You don't think people would have watched Tales of the Jedi? Something told in the old Republic, like actual old Republic,
I would have
2,000 years prior.
Man, it's frustrating.
I know, but you start to see maybe some of these places that are force sensitive, these places that you see them start to split and go off into another galaxy, like to set up the stuff in Ahsoka, or you start to see some of these artifacts being imbued with force power so that they can be put later in the series. And, maybe you start to see some of this cool stuff.
Of course, it's Easter egg stuff, but, you know, I mean, I don't know anymore. You know, I remember us discussing Guardians of the Galaxy before it came out, and me going, at the time, it was like, I know I can't wait for this, and I love these characters, and I know them. Most people don't. Is anyone going to go?
It was a hit.
And the truth is, a couple things. The movie's great. Okay, which is a big part of it. And Marvel had gotten it came at exactly the right time of Marvel picking up steam. I mean,
but if Eternals had been a little more,
line. I want to make a point.
Okay.
Captain America: The First Avenger. That movie's fucking perfect. You know, it didn't do that well.
Mm-hmm. The brand wasn't established yet, right?
The brand was not established, and people did not want a period piece. People complained at the time, oh, I don't care. Now, but Avengers killed.
Mm-hmm.
The first Thor did decent, but again, these movies, I don't remember the exact numbers, a couple $100 million, you know, like by later Marvel standards, like these would, you know, right now they would be considered failures.
But then you get Captain Marvel makes $1 billion. And is kind of a period piece, a little out of the continuity of what we'd established.
It's also not good, but because of Infinity War. Captain Marvel makes $1 billion because of Infinity War. And Endgame, right in between. Your Endgame's coming. People are rabid for, well, maybe we're, you know, and that teaser was perfect, you know, at the end of, you know, I mean.
And I loved the Captain America 3 teaser or trailer. I thought that was great. I loved it. And it referenced the Eternals, so I'm happy because I love the Eternals because of Kirby, and I love the whole Eternals story. Whether or not it was successly put to screen, it doesn't matter. There's a version that can be good. Yeah, but if somebody were if Feige, hold on, he might be on the other line. If he calls up and he goes, "Hey, Jonathan, Eternals 2, you're in," I'd be like, "Okay, which of the digits you want me to give you?" Because I would love to do something that was Kirby-esque, and that story is still there, man.
Listen, we've seen that with Thor, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be redeemed. You
totally.
know, the first Thor, I think was like a B+.
I really liked it. Yeah,
I like it, but you know, I think it works for the story. But him running around without powers, you know, I like it. I like the movie.
I like it a lot.
It's like,
and the ending, I think, is so great.
You know,
the ending's great. The "I'm sorry, Jane" and the sacrifice, I thought was great. And
it's great.
Yeah.
You know, and it makes him worthy. I think it's great, you know. But the second movie, most people feel, and I like the second one.
Yeah.
But only okay. But then Ragnarok's fucking great.
Ragnarok rocks.
Love and Thunder is a mixed bag.
It was a little stuffed with some of the delineating jokes that took from the urgency of the plot line, in my opinion.
At the end of the day, Love and Thunder has they sandwich two stories together, and the tones are just wrong. They don't mix well.
But I think that the resolutions to both those stories and being married together at the end, I think they dovetailed beautifully at the end of that movie. I think that Jane's sacrifice,
but I'm just saying, it's
or Jane's death and what it taught. I think what Jane taught like the bad guy. I think that stuff was great.
You're going too far. The
I
point
know.
is, mixed bag stuff. Don't go far for the sake of this conversation.
Yeah.
Bring it back to Star Wars. Like this is a mixed bag.
Sure.
But what do fans want? What's going to be successful? Because we've hit that place now where Disney's not going great. Star Wars just making these. We don't. It's not a sure thing. A second season. It's not. Even with that setup, and look, if they don't do it, I think we'll get a comic. We'll get something. At least.
Yeah, we got Jar Jar comics, and he was derided. We got tons of Jar Jar comics.
That was a different time, though. Yeah, but those weren't necessarily canon. The comics right now are canon.
Right.
It's Disney putting them out, right?
One of the biggest Star Wars fans I know, no offense, Ian. That's Dylan, Bryant Dylan over there at Fanbase Press, who I'll see next week, says, so many people misunderstand. Oh, hey, Jonathan. Hey, Ian. Great conversation from what I've caught so far. As someone who generally loves most Star Wars, but who's mixed on what the Acolyte seems to be doing, let me offer my own, I believe, nuanced thoughts. While I think it's unquestionable that the Jedi of the prequels are intentionally depicted as flawed, I'd argue the Acolyte takes this further by romanticizing the dark side and Sith, depicting them as sympathetic underdogs, while diluting. I don't know what else you wrote.
Well, listen.
I don't know what else you wrote. There's only so much space on StreamYard. You get the gist.
I can appreciate the gist of that. And, what's interesting about that is I don't know that that's so much. Obviously, this series was presented very point of view, a little Rashomon-esque, right? Mm-hmm. So to the extent that we're experiencing it through Asha's eyes, yes, it's doing that. I don't know how much they're trying to convince the viewer, but that's exactly what I think is interesting about this series.
Mm-hmm. I'll take
not
interesting.
As simple as, yeah. Now, here's the thing. It sort of gets into what Luke comes away with at the end of Jedi, right? And or arguably what at the end of episode 3, what Obi-Wan and Yoda realize is what the Jedi were doing, it's wrong. This absolute, we're going to be monks, we can't have any feelings, all that. It pushes it too far. And ultimately, the idea of balance needs to be exactly that. The dark side's all dark. The Jedi, the light side, they're all, no, we can't have any emotions. Is that really the light side? It shouldn't love be a good thing? Shouldn't caring about people, caring about friends, all that thing, family, shouldn't that be a positive thing? Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's where he's corrupting her. He's bringing her over, but obviously it shouldn't be just do whatever you feel like. And clearly the crystal going red.
That was cool.
Awesome. The idea was always supposed to really have so much hate that you're pouring into it. I've seen some people talking about, well, why did it happen for her and it didn't happen with Anakin? Well, what is she? I mean, I still think the idea that it's so yin yang, May and Asha, and one at any given time is representing the light side, and one at any given time is representing the dark side. That as she went fully over to the dark side, she didn't have to be pouring it in. To be clear, the idea in canon is, in order to become a Sith, you have to get an existing lightsaber and you corrupt the crystal. Turning it red is corrupting it. And you have to pour your hate into it. And yet, it just kind of happened for her without actually having to go into the effort of it. She wasn't trying to do that. It just did. And I actually think that's representative, just that because she's so just an aspect, if that makes any sense.
No, I was going to say that I think both those characters are as ephemeral as they are physical in that way. And that way they are two parts of the whole.
Right. And I keep saying yin yang,
but that's when the mother dies, and she dies being ephemeral and turns into dust, and the witches and this and that. Like, how many of them are? I mean, the witches could just be creations of the Sith anyway.
Well, no,
maybe none of them exist. Maybe none of them are physical. Does that make sense?
I get. It's reductive. It's because it's not just the Sith. That's what I think is so good about it. And ultimately because they're gone, May has nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
But that's just it. I mean, the yin yang idea is really important, and the idea is that it's balance, and but you have to have both in you. That there's stuff that exists in some of the other extended universe stuff. Quinlan Vos does exist in canon, but maybe not all of his stories do because a lot of them are the Dark Horse comics.
That's the guy with the tower head. I like him.
Quinlan Voss is the one that looks like a Native American.
Oh, never mind.
The Jedi looks like a Native American. And we see him in episode 2, okay? And we know he's around because in Kenobi, we see he's referenced as having been through that Underground Railroad.
Okay.
But in the Dark Horse comics, Quinlan Voss is someone who let himself go down the dark path a bit, you know? And I also, it's sort of interesting because there's a little bit, you know, arguably there's a little balance to using the dark side a little bit, or what's been called the dark side, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's always the tricky thing. The Jedi are insisting, you know, down that path the dark side leads, you know, can you go too far down the path? Well, Quinlan Voss, it was like, well, he brought himself back. So, you know, okay, is it okay to do this sometimes? And that should be what a more balanced idea of someone should be, right? And maybe they aren't a Jedi. I think that was sort of what Luke is saying on some level, you know?
And Luke does it. It's not canon, but those Dark Empire series were amazing. And Luke very much goes down that path.
Right. So, you know, I think the idea of Asha and May might be that they're just representative of this yin yang and they're sort of flowing between each other as the same person. And they're a personification of how that flows through a single person.
Speaking of single people, Greg C., I don't know if he's single, but he definitely said, I never got that the Jedi couldn't love. They were encouraged to avoid attachments. Two different things. Greg C. is someone who loves, but he can't get attached, baby. He's out there singles.
That's just it. Listen, it's a good argument, but that's the whole point. It's the whole reason why they have to take them young, because they shouldn't have these attachments, you know, and they're really supposed to be monks. When they have too strong feelings even for each other, of course they do love, okay? But they're not supposed to. Not supposed, you know. Listen, by the way, going back to what I was just saying.
Is that why Qui-Gon left his mother to like die on fucking Tatooine?
Yes.
It's fucked up.
Yes.
That
is why. They never go back for her because it's an attachment. It's not good for him to go back for her. It's completely fucked up. But when Obi-Wan kills Maul, he screams in anger and kills him. He's tapping into the dark side.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? He's fully aggressive.
Yeah. And then when they brought Maul back as a spider thing, I screamed. Because I was so really... when they killed Maul, I screamed because I thought he was going to be in all 3 movies, and I thought that would have been brilliant. It was such a great design. Ian, I can talk to you about Star Wars forever, but I don't know if the listeners can keep doing that.
I'm just saying, the answer is, it's not the Jedi can't love. They can, but they're not supposed to.
Right.
Again, loving is absolutely forming an attachment.
Sorry, Greg. You're going to have to get attached. You got to break some hearts, buddy. You're going to have to hurt a little bit, Greg. I don't know who Greg C is, but I like talking to him. Ian, I like talking to you too. We're going to talk a little bit more on the Wolverine Deadpool special. Can you come back from Comic-Con early and talk about it with me? You're going to do Comic-Con all day, right?
I'm going. I'm not sure what day I'm coming back yet. I might come back Friday. I might come back Saturday. I'm not sure yet. Okay. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to see the movie because of Comic-Con.
Sure.
It's a possibility I go to a screening early in the week before Comic-Con. I'm not sure.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Well, I'm looking forward to it because Heidi is in her second.
But by the way, I want to say, yes. Greg just made a comment.
Yeah, he says, yes. Kenobi on Mustafar. And you are my brother.
Not. Yeah. And again, that's the point. They're not supposed to. Of course they do, but they're not supposed to.
Yeah, and Andy Rattinger says it's about attachment as obsession. Well, I would look forward to an Acolyte season 2. Say what you will, I'm in the 27% who enjoyed it. Bring me back Basil running around going and like sniffing around and stuff like that. I like that guy, even if sometimes he was relegated to just a plot device to move things forward. I don't care. He was fun. All the aliens were fun. Seeing Kilnaka fight was fun. Jedi Fu was awesome.
Yeah.
The acting.
Listen, there's things to like and dislike about the series. Sure. My bottom line.
Is that not life, Ian?
Did I enjoy it? I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Yeah. I'm not, I think regular viewers may know this, which I'll talk about my wife, who's very picky and critical. Mm-hmm. And I did not feel I should tell her she needed to watch it. She would, the bad would outweigh the good for her. The good outweighed the bad for me.
Right.
I would tell a serious Star Wars fan, I'd say, watch it.
You are like the twins, Ian. You are both good and bad.
Well, you
were constantly weighing them within yourself.
I try to have balance. Yeah. And sometimes, sometimes you're going to catch me in a bad day.
I've caught you on a bad day before. It's not pleasant. All right, kids. You're going to catch us on episode 700 of Geekscape. Then we're headed down to Comic-Con. And then we're going to get either a Comic-Con special. Matt Kelly's bringing the microphones to record some stuff. You're going to get some news from Comic-Con, whether or not my voice is in it. Probably not after preview night. But you're definitely going to get a Deadpool Wolverine special as well. Somewhere in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have a child. So it's sporadic timing. We'll see when all that stuff comes out. You will know if you subscribe to the audio feed on the podcast, or if you subscribe here on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. But really, the audio feed is awesome because sometimes we don't do streams for the audio, and maybe I'm interviewing somebody and they don't want to do the streaming thing, or like at a convention, I only have the microphones there, and we can't stream on the convention floor. Or maybe it's a panel. We have LACC coming up, LA Comic Con's in April or in October. There's going to be a lot of panel recording there. A lot of cool audio content. So you should be subscribed to the podcast feed on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and share it with your friends. Leave those 5-star reviews. That helps our visibility, all that stuff. And as Andy Radinger says, Daddy London. Of course, I'm Daddy. I've been Daddy London since I started Geekscape. People like Matt Kelly, some of you fans, y'all have been my children. And there's good and dark within all of you. All right, Ian.
I want to hear you do your Dargo impersonation to your kid when you say, "I'm your daddy."
I'm not doing that. The what?
Come
the Darth what?
Dargo.
I don't know, man. You do it.
Hey, Dargo, tell him who your daddy is.
No. Let me ease into this daddy job. All right. I can do it with your Geekscape, but
you remember what I'm talking about, right?
Dargo, I'm serious, Ian, like I said in the opening.
Farscape.
Yeah, I know, but words are just escaping my fucking head. And the Dargo stuff, he was saying that to Chinara, and it was creepy, bro. Like that stuff was like.
No, but not then. When Crichton's, they go to like mess up a bunch of people, and it was like, "Hey, Dargo, tell them who their daddy is." And Dargo's, "I'm your daddy."
I like Dargo
in that deep voice, and it's
I'm
so funny to have the aliens who have no idea what these references are.
My favorite is still Rigel.
Yeah, sure.
And Heidi's favorite is Pilot. I don't think she watched beyond the episode where they cut off Pilot's arm to use as a trade.
You almost didn't watch past that.
It was fucking brutal.
I remember you texted me going,
brutal.
What the
fuck am I watching? Farscape's
What
incredible.
is this?
Farscape's amazing. And like I said, another audio only was my conversation with Rockney O'Bannon, creator of Farscape. All right, Ian, I'll see you down in San Diego. If you want to jump into Geekscape 700, come be a part of it. It's going to be Sunday, 8 o'clock at night. Think about
it. Maybe.
All right. I don't know what we're doing. It's 700th episode of Geekscape, so we're gonna geek out. If you want more geeking out, I just talked to Jim Kruger, comic book writer. Jim Kruger, he's gonna be signing at our booth there at Comic-Con. He's got a brand new project with Stevie Aoki, and that is booth 1632. They're on the floor, the Geekscape booth. Come get some freebies. We got lots of freebies. All right. Peace, Ian. I'll see you in San Diego.
Sounds good.
All right.
Stay
Peace,
classy.
Geekscape is. Stay classy.